Change. I'm talking now to Bheki Sibiya, who's Executive Chairman of PPC, and he's talking to us now about the cancellation of that PPC General Meeting, which was set for this coming Monday. Morning to you, Bheki. Thanks for coming in. This is hot news. Only about an hour ago, I think you put out the statement about the cancellation. This was heading for our big board showdown. We had Ketso Gordon resigning, asking you to rescind. You refused.
Yes.
He tried to mobilize shareholder support for this meeting. Enough of them wanted the meeting, and you said there would be a meeting. Now it's been called off. Essentially, the deal is half of the present directors will go. The guys who called the meeting are going to nominate 6 new directors. This sounds like a fairly balanced deal. How did you do it?
Thank you very much, David, for the opportunity. For us, we are, on behalf of the shareholders, relieved that we have reached the agreement that we have. It has components which we need to look at and say 6 of the current executive, or rather non-executive directors, are going to remain in the board, and most of them are those who are heading actually the board committees of one form or another. For us, we wanted to ensure that there is continuity. And then, of course, the petitioning or requisitioning shareholders are nominating people who are already in the notice. Beyond that, though, all the shareholders are given the opportunity between now and Monday the 8th, end of the business day, to make nominations. Those nominations are all going to be pulled together, and the nominations committee, which is headed by Mr. Tim Ross, who is an independent non-executive director, who is the lead at the moment, chairing the nominations committee, will come up with a number probably of about 14 prospective directors. Those will be presented in the AGM on the 26th of January, and then 6 from those will be voted into the board.
Now, I'll talk about your position in a moment, but there's an interesting provision here, and it says that no one may be nominated who has served as an executive director in the last 10 years. Now, immediately that spotlight turns on Ketso Gordon. It's saying that he can't be nominated.
I do agree that it focuses on him, but it says Paul cannot be. But
that's
also
Paul Staver, his predecessor?
Yes, but also John Gomesal cannot be appointed. For us, we just say in our engagement with the requisitioning shareholders, we felt it is an appropriate thing to do.
Now, okay, so can you make a rule like that? I mean, can you make up a rule that says certain people may not be nominated?
Well, it is the agreement on the interface among the stakeholders which were involved, and so we were free to come up with that agreement.
And the nominations committee, obviously under the lead independent director, said that's going to be the rule.
Yes.
Another element is an advocate. It suggests there still may be elements of trust, so you've got a senior advocate from the Johannesburg bar to keep an eye on things.
For us, we felt, again, in the interest of transparency, we need to have people who are independent, because between the requisitioning shareholders and ourselves, we need to accept that at some stage there were heated exchanges, and so with those heated exchanges, we need to get somebody who is independent, who is objective, who is professional, who is going to guide the process along.
Right, it looks like Ketso Gordon will be out in the cold. Your position was this part of the deal. You've said you'll stay as chairman while this transition process goes. The appointment of the new board will happen at the end of January with the AGM. Then you step down both as chairman and the board. Was that part of the deal?
It's not necessarily that I step down at the AGM.
But in principle, you're going to. Isn't that what your statement says?
No. It says we are going to handle the transition. After the board has been reconstituted, the board on an annual basis chooses the chairman. And therefore, I could either be chosen or not be chosen at the first meeting of the shareholders after the
All right,
AGM.
so in the normal way, you would make yourself available or not available for re-election.
Yes.
Will you stand again as chairman?
I am available to stand for a duration. However, the chairman is first amongst equals, and he serves at the pleasure of the fellow board members. And one would test that pleasure. If that pleasure still exists, I will continue to serve, probably for no longer than 1 more year. Because I had already indicated to the board that I wouldn't want to be like people north of South Africa who live in the offices for too long.
So there hasn't been any pressure from the requisitionists, as you call them. It sounds like something from the French Revolution.
Yes.
The people who called for the meeting. There hasn't been pressure from that camp for you not to make yourself available again as chairman?
Absolutely no pressure. The engagement which we have had with them has really been professional. It has been pursuing their commercial interests and the best interests of the company. And for me, I would really be saying the shareholders who requested for the meeting have acted with huge integrity and professionalism.
How did you decide which of the present board would make themselves unavailable, or was there a voluntary process, or?
It was a combination of people who chair the number of committees. For instance, we felt the chairperson of the audit committee, it is important that he stays. The chairman of the investment committee or the deal committee stays because it makes sense. The chairperson of the risk committee stays. I chair the board, I stay. But also, for us, we want to really honor our colleagues who said, you know what, we are prepared to stand down for space creation. And there are 3 directors who did that, and we believe it's commendable.
All right, now there were allegations made by Ketso Gordon. He talked about the board not being competent. He said that they weren't interested in the business. They didn't take a detailed look at the business. In some of what he said, he seemed to be supported by Paul Staver, his predecessor that you referred to before. These allegations still sit there. I'm not sure that they've been refuted.
We refuted the allegations. Let's look at the issue of functionality or otherwise of the board. If you look at Africa Growth Strategy, it was adopted by this board. And Ketso, or the former CEO, came and found the strategy there, adopted it and executed it. It would not have been taken by a non-functional board. And for us, not only did we come with the strategy, we went into Ethiopia, we went into DRC, we went to Rwanda, we're exploring Algeria because we're taking decisions which were fine. I think the allegations were opportunistic and, in my view, were extremely unfortunate.
If Ketso Gordon had not resigned, you refused to accept his request to rescind the resignation, things would have taken a different course.
Not necessarily, because on an annual basis, the board looks at itself and says, may we look at the renewal. We had actually 3 non-executive directors who were retiring by rotation. They were going to be replaced or not replaced. The 4th one was retiring and was not available for rotation. So we had 4 spots. So now we're creating really, in essence, only 2 additional spots because of this.
Now that we're at this point, how long was this brewing with Ketso Gordon? Because obviously you keep things quiet in a company and then something happens. But such things don't happen immediately. They usually are a process that builds.
I think there was a blip of it about 17 months ago. And we dealt with it, and our view was...
What was the blip?
The blip was when he tendered the resignation out of nowhere, wanting to terminate one of the executives, not following, executive directors, not following the proper process of the removal of somebody from the board. And we really dealt with that issue, and we got a sense that it was dealt with, because there were few other executives who were dealt with more properly and professionally, and then it presented itself this way. And for us as a board, we really had gone out of our way to seek middle ground, because Ketso as a person, he's a great person. He was a great leader, and he just made one decision which was bad. And we tried to help him correct it, but you know what, at some stage, it was moving from bad to worse to where it is. Otherwise, of a good person.
Looking back at the process, accepting good faith on both sides, let's assume that, would you have done things differently as the chairman?
On the basis of what I know and I have gone through, no. For me, I think probably more time with him on a one-to-one more than I did, more time with other board members, more as saying consult those people whom you trust and respect before you take a decision. It could have helped, because after he had resigned, he consulted those people whom he trusts and respect, and they said, rescind your decision. As we're busy debating that, and I want to say, because we have said it in the past, the board was split 50-50. There were some who were saying he has done something wrong, we are angry about it, but he is repentant. In the best interest of the company, let's bring him back. As we were talking about that, and he threatened legal action against us, and therefore even those who were supporting him said, you know what, let's bring this to a head, because it needed to be brought to a head.
Just quickly, the financial director who became an issue, in his view, he wanted to remove her. The board felt that wasn't appropriate. Does her position remain, does the board endorse her position?
She remains as an executive director for finance. We get to the AGM, we do the selection. Since we're focusing on non-executive directors, then we're going to deal with the executive directors who are two, the chief executive and the chief financial officer. For us, I think what we believe is elegant to do is to appoint the chief executive officer. And once we have done that, we look at him or her and say, form the team of your choice, and therefore the chief financial officer may be retained, but there is a possibility that this person may say, I want to form my team differently, in which case we would engage in the adult professional director engagement with the chief financial officer.
We'll have to end it there. That is Bheki Sibiya. He has another job too, of course. He's the chief executive of the Chamber of Mines, where you've been I think deputized for in the meantime. He is the executive chairman of PPC still, and that meeting now cancelled for December the 8th, and the AGM on the January the 26th is when the new board will be appointed, following on the deal that has been made between the various shareholders.